NFL 2024-2025 season team betting previews. We got the Miami Dolphins. This was an offense that finished number 1 in yards, number 2 in points, and it returns all its key pieces. Tua had a fully healthy offseason to improve. He's lost some weight. Reports are he's in tip-top shape. Arm strength and mobility have improved. I'll be looking to play overs in games involving this Miami team, especially early in the season. It's another year in this creative Mike McDaniel offensive system. The defense has a lot of new faces. Think they could be trailing a lot more in games, and this will force the offense to be more aggressive compared to last season where they kind of just killed clock most of the fourth quarter. Miami also has a defensive player who I think will win Rookie of the Year. I'll explain who that is, what number I bet him at, and why. But first, if you could give this video a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. This is the first team preview video I'm posting this season, but I'll be discussing all 32 teams from a betting perspective, regular season win totals, future bets I like, conference and division winners, my Super Bowl prediction, some season-long player props, and award winner bets. Have a lot of good information to share on a lot of teams, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. Dolphins were bullies last year, behind Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and rookie running back Devon Achane. Miami started 5-1, averaged 37 points per game during that span. They put up 70 on Denver, 42 on Carolina, but they beat up on the weak, going 10-1 versus teams with a losing record, but only 1-6 versus playoff teams or teams with a winning record. And those 6 losses versus winning teams came by an average margin of defeat of 18.7 points per game, losing 2 of them by 28-plus points. So as much as they stomped on bad teams, they got stomped out by good teams. No matter what metric you go by, this Miami offense is top 10. The defense finished 15th, but when you adjust for opponent strength, it's closer to 22nd in the league. The Dolphins defense faced the second easiest strength of schedule of opposing quarterbacks. 51% of opposing quarterback snaps came against either a backup quarterback or quarterbacks ranked in the bottom 6 in EPA per dropback. Miami should be able to get out to a hot start this year with a pretty soft opening schedule. I have them favored in their first 7 games, and they have a week 6 bye week, which in my opinion is probably the most ideal week for a bye. It's not too early, not too late. Week 5 and 6 is when the medical rooms start to really fill up for teams across the league. Overall, Miami plays a schedule that's a little tougher than league average this season, which is much tougher than their 3rd overall easiest strength of schedule last season. The Miami defense will play the 3rd toughest schedule of opposing quarterbacks this season. They won't get the luxury of facing Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle when they play the Jets this year, but rather Aaron Rodgers, assuming he stays healthy. But outside of that, they'll get Josh Allen 2 times, Matthew Stafford, Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud, and Brock Purdy. This is the biggest reason why their average point spread in all games is down to minus 1.12 points from an average point spread of minus 4.9 last year. Almost a 4-point adjustment, one of the biggest adjustments for any team season to season. But again, that soft spot of the early schedule has Miami playing 3 of their first 4 games at home. They host 3 coaches that will be seeing this Miami team for the first time, and this has been a big advantage for Miami when facing teams for the first time, especially for the Dolphins offense since McDaniel took over. It seems like this Miami offense is not something opposing team defenses can prepare for just on film alone. The first thing I typically check for with schedules for teams from Florida is how many home games they get during the winter months, or I should say how many road games in potential cold weather locations. Miami plays Green Bay Thanksgiving night, Week 13 outdoors on Lambeau Field, Week 17 in Cleveland, and Week 18 in New York. 2 of the coldest locations in the final 2 weeks. Not ideal, especially after we saw Miami get exposed in the playoffs versus KC in the freezing temps. Now, speaking of playoffs, Dolphins are still looking for their first playoff win since 1999-2000 season. No reason to think this Miami offense won't be explosive again. Everyone who contributed last season returns. They add Odell Beckham Jr. at the wide receiver spot. He'll fit pretty good, I think, at the number 3 as a possession type receiver. Jonnu Smith at tight end, he finished fourth best in yak per reception among tight ends last season. Comes down to two units, really. First one being the offensive line. Because it was riddled with injuries, they used 12 different starting offensive line combinations last season. Miami ranked 21st in adjusted games lost due to injury, but those injuries mostly involved the offensive line. Their top three graded offensive linemen, left tackle Teron Armstead, center Connor Williams, and right guard Robert Hunt, all missed at least 8 games. And the drop-offs to their backups was pretty significant. The other big concern with Miami is the defensive side of the ball. Besides the O-line injuries, they lost 2 of their best pass rushers late in the season when they needed them the most. Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb were huge losses. Phillips tore his Achilles in Week 12. Chubb tore his ACL Week 17. Then before the KC playoff game in the freezing cold, they were without linebacker Jerome Baker, cornerback Xavier Howard, and safety Javon Holland, who graded out as the 3rd best safety in the league. Certainly injuries played a major role for this defense last season. This was a Vic Fangio defense too, who is widely considered a top 5 defensive coordinator in the league. And he was a hyped up hire for Miami before last season, but he's also a defensive coordinator that needs a certain type of personnel to work with in his complex system. He didn't mesh well at all, neither like personality or style with this Miami roster, and he was let go right after the season. With Fangio gone, players are happy to see him leave. He's replaced with new defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, who comes over from the Ravens. He was a defensive line coach past few years and then an assistant head coach last season. He's going to have a big task of turning this defense around. He'll have to do it with a lot of new faces, too. Miami could have as many as 7 new starters on the defensive side, not including fill-ins potentially for Phillips and Chubb if they're not ready to go. Most of the other positions are being filled in with equal skill and talent, so I don't expect a noticeable drop-off, but I do think it's going to take some time for this defense to click. It's an older unit, too, with a first-time defensive coordinator. I'm expecting a lot of high-scoring shootout-type games in September and early October. Miami got a good one in the draft, though. I really like this kid, a pass-rushing specialist, Chop Robinson from Penn State, who should have an immediate impact, especially with the uncertain status of Phillips and Chubb. This Miami defense was top 3 in both pressure rate and adjusted sack rate prior to Phillips and Chubb injuries. Chop Robinson can step right in and help fill that void. Now, I bet Chop Robinson plus 1,800 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. It has moved a little bit from when I bet it a couple weeks ago. I think in this new system, he should get some opportunities. The Miami secondary will be much improved. They got 2 legit safeties with Jordan Poyer and Javon Holland, Jalen Ramsey and Kendall Fuller at cornerbacks, and the front sevens benefit a lot from good secondaries. The better the coverage, the longer the QB takes to throw the ball. 1 second is an eternity and can be the difference between, the QB getting the pass off or taking a coverage sack. I think this secondary is going to be sneaky good. Last season, 6 different Dolphins players had 5 or more sacks, and a big reason for this is because Miami was playing with a big lead, and this forced opposing offenses into obvious passing plays, which naturally gives more opportunities for sacks. I think Chop Robinson will get a ton of these opportunities, and this defense that will have good coverage, but because it will be a defense that's going to put a lot more pressure on QBs and play with a lot more aggression compared to Vic Fangio's defense last year, where he kind of sits back in coverage and tries to, force opposing QBs into making bad decisions. So I got Defensive Rookie of the Year on Chop Robinson. I'm looking to bet overs in Miami games early season. I'm a little torn on this win total. 9.5 wins seems doable. I imagine a lot of bettors will want to bet over 9.5. It's such a fast, explosive offense. It's an easy team to root for with Hill and Waddle, that duo. But this division's gotten tougher, and good defenses can get pressure on Tua can easily disrupt this offense that's so dependent on timing. Quick pressure and being physical with the wide receivers, jamming up the line of scrimmage and affecting their timing is the blueprint to stop this Miami offense. But I think betting their over game totals is better than their win totals. I'm a believer in this year's version of Tua and him being in the best shape of his career. His response to why he cut so much weight was to find more mobility and extend plays. McDaniel said it's to find a new level in his game. But regardless, it's clear that they plan to have Tua be a more willing runner and revert back kind of to his college traits of making more out of structured plays. This side of his game has been disguised and kind of discouraged due to hip and head injuries. Now, I don't think Tua is going to become some dual threat quarterback or anything. I don't even think he'll average more than 4 or 5 rush attempts per game. But in 2023, he ran the 4th fewest of any starter with just 25 non-kneel down QB sneak rush attempts all season. Now, Miami started to face a lot of stacked boxes when their offensive line started dealing with injuries. Opposing defensive line started to win more up front and be more aggressive, especially with no scramble threat from Tua. But if Tua starts to run just a bit more, this is going to be an even tougher offense to defend, especially early in the season when McDaniel can kind of take advantage of teams who haven't seen this Miami offense up close and personal. But again, the main reason I lean toward betting overs is the changeover on defense. Anthony Weaver was hired, and all reports are very favorable of how he's implementing this defense. This defense will be better than it finished in 2023, but I don't see it hitting on all cylinders immediately out the gate. I can see the Dolphins playing to a league-high total early in the season in September, early October, but then finishing around league average when the defense comes together. Now, if you watch to the end, I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more team previews coming up. Hit that notification bell to be alerted for the next update.